After that sexy sermon, I am upset. Why is everything saying the same thing? Why did I have a conversation earlier this week about this reconciliation, having a hard conversation things? Then I have a hard conversation. Then I listened to my sister's podcast, and they're also talking about the same thing. Then this sermon is basically saying the same thing. It's hard having hard conversations, but it must be done. And I know people that I will be contacting, not even to have hard conversations, just to have conversations, because they matter, and I think I'm ready. I'm gonna take a minute to journal, then go. I do need to go to the beach. I'm getting so heavy right now, I don't even know. Yeah, so I'm on one of my adventures. Once again, I don't really know where I'm going. The plan was to go to the beach. I don't know how to get there. I'm just following a trail, which supposedly is supposed to lead me to the beach. I have no data. That's problematic. I don't know how I'm actually going to get back from the pavilion. I think I can get like from where I'm going to the pavilion, but I don't know how I'm going to get from the pavilion to where I live yet. The taxi man got me this far and I paid, and I know he ripped me off because he said, oh, it's 140. I looked at the meter, it said 108, but I wasn't going to fight this man. I'm not feeling very confrontational today, as you can see. But yeah, and then I was starting to go on the trail, and I was like scared, because I was like, I have no LTE. If I have data, like, I'm fine. I have no LTE, so I don't know how I'm getting back. Since this man took $140 from me, I only have like 110 now, which I don't know if that's like a safe amount to have. Yeah, but then when I was going on the trail, I started seeing a bunch of people coming, and I was like, I'm not gonna be the one to die. Like, there's already people which have done the trail, so. And today is the day I decided to wear jeans. I don't know what's going on. I like how there's a random cow just existing.
I'm generally proud of myself. Just like I'm here, I could have been inside sulking, thinking about things I can't control, I don't want to, people I can't have, and I don't want to. Like even when I was hiking, I was like, if I don't get to the beach and the hiking is just it, like I was so content because it was therapeutic. So today has been a load of learning lessons. Lesson number 1, I thought I was getting like direction savvy. I'm not. Got to the beach anyways, but so late, so now I don't even know how I'm getting home. It's so pretty, like what is there to worry about in life, you know?
If you're wondering, Les, how exactly did you get back? That's a great question. That's a great question. What happened was, okay, so before this whole like beach thing, right? I did do research. I just did like the skimming kind of research, you know, the research where like you just read a few major words. So I was like, okay, how do I get there? So like I had no data because there was no service because I was in a rural village in the outskirts of Hong Kong. And how do I leave? So I knew there was a few options. I knew there was like a boat, a taxi, or hiking. Those were the 3 options, right? So then I'm looking around, and I think in the village there was somewhere that had like a number for the boat. So as the sun is setting, I'm like, okay, I should really figure out how I'm gonna get out of here. I call the number, and the number is like, and I'm like, hey, I was wondering if there's any boats operating today to take people back to Sai Kung from Sai Wan. And the person was like, yeah, there's like one more boat based on demand, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay, how much does it cost? I don't remember what the exact cost. I just remember I didn't have enough. And I probably would have had enough if I hadn't gotten scammed by the taxi. But yeah, so then I was like, crap, I can't go to the boat. I need to find another way out. Slowly getting darker, right? So then I walk back into the village and I'm just standing there looking confused. And then this random man looks at me and he's like, do you need any help? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I need help. I'm confused. I was like, I'm trying to leave. And the person's like, oh, if you catch, it looks like there's a boat coming. If you catch the boat. And I was like, yeah, I've already called, but I don't have enough cash for the boat. I was like, is there an ATM around here? This man looks at me and laughs. Like he just laughs so joyfully, and I was like in distress. He laughs and he's like, do you know where you're at? Did you do any research? And I was like, I did, just not very good. And then he's like, well, if you don't have enough for the boat, then you can try calling a taxi. Like I have a list of numbers, right? So then this man lets me in, and as he's like letting me in, he's like questioning me. I find out that he's from Cuba. What is he doing from Cuba in a rural village in Hong Kong selling surfboards? I have no idea. I didn't ask this story. I was just trying to get out. And he's making jokes. I'm distressed and he's making jokes. So then I'm calling all the taxi numbers. 1, either they didn't answer. 2, they answered and then they realized that I speak English. Then they hanged up. And I was like, okay, thanks. Or they answered and they were speaking back and they were like, okay, where are you trying to go from? I was like, Sai Wan Pavilion to Sai Kung. And they're like, no, not enough money. Then they hang up. And I'm like, and when they mean not enough money, they meant like they wouldn't be getting enough money based on like the taxi meter thing. And I was so pressed at this point because I was like, even if I go back to the pavilion, if there's no taxis, to take me back to Sai. How am I gonna get there? It's like a 5-hour hike, I think, from Sai Wan to Sai. In the dark, I can't do that. I don't know about all that. And then the Cuban man, he's still laughing, making jokes. And he's like, you see all the people, they've called taxis, but they've gotten taxis because one, they can speak Cantonese and they doubled the amount. I couldn't even double the amount because the first taxi man scammed me. So there was no way I could even like make that offer proposition. So I'm just sitting there like, I'm stranded in Sai Wan. How am I gonna get out of this rural village? How did I get myself in this situation? I just wanted to go to the beach. But then two random people, an Italian and I figured this out later. I just couldn't like know that. But an Italian man and an Australian, I think, Chinese woman, they just come, they're kikiing, they're making jokes, they're having a blast, and they're trying to find their way out of there too. And so then they come and then they ask the Cuban man, like, is there any way out, or is there any like boats, blah blah blah. And they had just missed the boat, so they couldn't even get on the boat. So they were just like, the Cuban was like, she has already tried calling and none of them picked up, or they picked up, or like they hanged up, blah 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 blah, right? So then they're just there like, oh, that's a bad situation, right? But they're making jokes. And the Thaiman said something. He was like, the way I see it is we could stay here stranded, or we could walk back to Sai Wan Pavilion and potentially get out. I was like, that doesn't really sound very good, seeing that walking back, by the time we get to Sai Wan Pavilion, it will be dark. But then the Cuban man was like, well, I have 4 beds. And at that moment, I knew at any cost possible, I would be walking with this Italian man and this Australian woman, because how do you just have 4 beds ready in a rural village? So I was just like, okay, thanks for the offer. So then they start walking and I third wheel. You're getting out, I'm getting out. I don't know how it's gonna happen. I don't know what's going on. But it was like about an hour hike from the village to Sai Wan Pavilion. So we're just walking, and they made it such like a fun experience, even though I was borderline like having an anxiety attack. I was scared. I was so scared. I didn't even think. I was like, how did I get here? What are the decisions I made that got me here? But then finally, what had happened is like, so we were walking again. We had not called a taxi, so we were just walking to the pavilion with faith, with hope, with something. But we passed a group that was sitting, like they had taken a break to sit. I don't know, but we were like, we can't afford breaks. We just need to get where we need to go. So we walked past them. And then as soon as we get to the pavilion, there's just a taxi, just not 2, just 1 taxi there, waiting. And we all look at each other and we run towards this taxi because we're like, this must be our lucky day. Like, how is there just 1 taxi just waiting for us at the time that we arrived? So we get in the taxi, we don't even talk to the taxi man, we're just like, Sai Kung, and he goes, right? And then like midway, the taxi person gets a call and he looks back at us. And I think at that moment we realized and he realized that he picked up the wrong people. I think he was waiting for the people that we had passed on the trail to the Sai Wan Pavilion. So he just looks at us. At this point, the meter has been going. So to go back, drop us off is a waste of money. And we just look at each other and we're like, that was not on purpose. We just were trying to find our way out, you know? Not each man for himself, but like, how are we gonna get out, you know? And then finally, like, he, up the road, there was like another taxi. I don't know why I think these taxis were waiting for people to double the money. So then he goes and then he tells the taxi to like go back. And this is all assumption because they were speaking in Cantonese. But body language wise, the taxi started driving back. I just kind of picked that up. So that's kind of how we got out. And the good thing is like during the taxi ride back, the Australian girl looks at me and she's like, oh, are you like, we'd been going back and forth questions, blah blah. She's like, oh, are you looking to like explore Asia? And I was like, I'm in Hong Kong. This is me exploring Asia. Do you see where it got me? But I was just calm. I was like, huh? She was like, yeah, exploring Asia. And I was like, do you have any recommendations? This girl gave me list of places, things, and like tips and stuff. And I was writing everything down. I was writing everything down, like the way like my mind was like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea that I had not really had. But yeah, then we got back. And once we got back, honestly, I would have paid for all of us because they were the reason I got out. I was not thinking. I was stressed. But then they ended up paying for me too. They ended up paying for me too. So I just got out and I was like, they were like, oh, do you know how to get back? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take the bus back to where I live once we got to Sai Kung. So that was like definitely traumatic. Hiking in the dark with two strangers, but knowing that staying with the Cuban man was probably not a good option to really take. But I did learn a few lessons. I'm a lesson person. I did learn a few lessons. Lesson one, be open to opportunities. Because the Asia idea, lesson number two, I'm Jesus' favorite. Like, no one can tell me anything. No one can say anything to me. Like, I'm big-headed about that. Because how did I get out clean and I didn't even have to pay for anything? Like, how? I don't know. I don't know how I got out of that situation clean. I have no idea. I was just like, well, here we are. And that's how I'm like, I'm just his favorite. That's it. That's the only explanation I have. That's the only explanation I have of how I got out of that situation. Lesson number three, the lens that you look at your situation with impacts your experience. Because we were all stranded, but I was stuck while they were surviving. I was borderline having an anxiety attack while they were kikiing, making jokes. They were embodying the it is what it is mentality, right? And I was just here scared. And if we're really being honest though, like the only way you're ever really stranded is if you stay stuck mentally. You know, and surviving comes by striding. And stranded kind of puts this like blame on the outer world. And that's what I was doing the whole entire time. Of course I was like, how did I get in this situation? But a lot of the things I was blaming the outer world. I was blaming the taxi man. I was blaming things that weren't even in the situation, you know? But I was like, I'm stranded. But literally, stranded puts blame on the outer world, but when you're stuck, the blame is actually on you. Because you could be surviving if you just kept on moving. If you kept on moving, you'll soon find out that there's a taxi waiting for you, whether you called it or not, whether you're gonna end up paying for it or not, it's there.